Hello, and welcome to Civ 7. So, I'll be giving a bit of a look, in my opinion, at the game today. A bit of an in-depth going over through everything, and doing a bit of a review and first impressions of things. It's based on, just so you know how much I've kind of played, and you can make a judgment onto how much my opinion matters and that. Based on that, I'm about 28 hours in. So, played a decent bit in the first week or so. I've gone through 2 games, so just so you know. And I've beaten it with the first game, which is on the channel, if you're wanting to watch me go all the way through it, is just, I think it was a military victory, but the same turn I did get an economic victory, so I just kind of reloaded the save, cancelled the project that I were working on, and then did an economic victory, got the achievement for both. So there's that. The second game was just a small little skirmish because I wanted to unlock something as someone, so it was just in the modern era, and I played through and got a scientific victory. So I've done 3 of the 4 win conditions, and as I say, I've got about 28 going on 29 hours in the game. So, and having looked on some of the reviews on Steam, apparently the game is in a bit of a mix. It's getting a mixed reception, and I can understand as to why. And I guess we'll start off where you always start off in Civ, picking a ruler, and now separately a civilization, as well as these mementos. So, as far as the differences from previous games go, so you no longer pick a separate leader and you no longer pick a leader and civilization. They're separate now. So, for example, I could pick Augustus here, go to Age and Civ, and throw him in as the Greeks. It makes no bloody sense, but I can do that, and it's quite funny, and it definitely leans into that whole, like, alternate history weirdness that Civ's kinda known for, and it mixes up the gameplay quite a bit. That and the ability to add in these mementos, which can give you some various bonuses. I've nearly got the first 2 rows of them unlocked now. You've got unlocks for progressing your account level up here, so I'm now level 12, and then you get some of them for progressing each leader. So Augustus Caesar for me now, he's just turned level 4. His next unlock will give him a breastplate, which gives 2 food per age in towns, which is not very good. It really isn't. The first thing I will say is, of course, as with every civilization, balancing all this seems to be a bit of a nightmare, I assume, on the developers' part. They want them to kind of be thematic, yet simultaneously they're also wanting to have them be viable. And it seems you can't really do both. So you end up with some characters just being blatantly better. I'm hearing a lot of people saying that if you want to go for like a science or culture build, then Catherine the Great essentially just dominates. And yeah. And this Eagle banner, where you get 5% bonus science efficiency per great work in a city, can lead to some broken things when you start combining those as well as some other mementos. And I will say that as well, when there's all these mementos involved. So for example, Great Imperial Crown, cities gain 5% science per great work on display. You could put that on. And then this Eagle banner, if you unlock it, you could put both of those on and she could become this absolute science powerhouse that destroys the world. Or you could even take those unlocks and put them on someone like Confucius, who gets science from specialists, and just put a load of specialists in your town. And just absolutely, and he gets expansionist. Oh. I think that's, I'm not sure what that actually unlocks that. I don't know what an attribute node is yet. I think that might be literally in the skill trees for characters. But anyway, you can start seeing how some of these could like add up to be quite interesting, some of the combos that you can do. The same thing goes with the civilizations, so the actual civs, like we can, so just as an example of someone who's kinda crap, like Jose Rizal here, when gaining rewards from a narrative event, gain an extra 20 culture and gold per age. He gets better celebrations and more happiness towards celebrations, which allows him to, and he even gets an unlock that'll probably help towards that you can slot in as a memento once you've leveled him up a bit. And the mementos, by the way, you can use them on any character, so you can level up one character to get mementos that suit their playstyle and then use them on someone else entirely. But yeah, so it's all about these celebrations. When your cities get enough happiness, they go into a celebration mode. And I think they had something like this on Civ 5, where it'd be like the We Love the King Day or something if you got on like certain resources on your trade routes. And it just, they'll, depending on your government, you'll be able to choose like, I'll have extra production for a few turns, I'll have extra food for a few turns. They usually last around 10 turns. I guess this guy would last 15, but you also get to, you unlock another social policy slot, so as you go through the age you unlock civics that might give you social policy slots. Think of them as perks. You can equip another perk. They're somewhat powerful. Some of them are really good, others, by the time you've got about 6 or so, you find that you're scraping the barrel a bit and you're going like, well, I've got room, I'll just throw that in. So I don't think this is particularly strong, and you can get some that are very unusual, where we've got here one site for all units, and you can kind of combine the site for units with, I think there's one further down. I forget the icon for it, but there is one that gives you your scouts get additional sight, and their ability that they can use gives them even more sight bonus than it normally does. And you can have like scouts that are basically radars, so you can get stuff like that. The same with, there's a few examples of civilizations that are just, you know, a bit mixed in terms of how powerful they are. Well, we can have a look through some of the civs quickly, and I'll give a bit of an example. So yeah, let's have a look. We've got a few different ones here. We've got so Greece here that I mentioned. We could have 3 influence per turn on the palace. Now influence is fairly difficult to get your hands on, especially early game, so that's actually not bad. And then a lot of the civs you'll see, they tend to have plus production towards building a certain wonder that is kind of associated with their civilization. So Romans get the Colosseum, Greeks get the Oracle, Egyptians get the pyramids, and so forth, right? But obviously, again, some of these are, some civs are more equal than others. Like, okay, so the Egypt get a special unique infantry unit, cool. They get these special great people with a single charge that can be trained. They're pretty decent, okay, and they get a unique quarter, which is build these 2 buildings on the same tile, and they'll get this extra bonus as well. So 2 unique buildings and a bonus if you put them on the same tile. And then it goes on to say who you actually get in the age unlocks based on which civ you played as. You go to Greece, similar thing, yep, great person with a charge, you've got a unique unit here, bonus at the top, bonus towards the oracle, unique quarter. They get a few more ages though, not ages, they get a few more civs when the age goes on though, because Greeks had a bigger influence on more civilizations moving through time than that. And then you get to Rome. They get, again, another little bonus, production towards Colosseum. They get a unique infantry as well. They get a unique commander instead of a great person, who, when they get to level 3, can make a settlement. And if they get another 3 levels, so they get to level 6, though you'll be lucky to get them as far as that in the early part of the game, but you might. You'll probably get a commander or 2 and maybe get 1 or 2 extra settlements out of this, but it's a nice thing and it can save you some settlement, save you buying some settlers. But it's nowhere near as hard to get settlers and settle a new town as it used to be. You get your unique buildings and quarter and that, and then they unlock so many civs going forwards. And so we're starting to realise, okay, these are that's a bit more powerful. That they unlock so many going forwards. You've got a lot more flexibility playing Rome. And then you get to places like the Khmer. Yeah, well, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not, but they're kind of, okay, you have to be on rivers. You don't lose the natural yield of a tile when you build on it if it's on a river. And you get cavalry that have high combat strength. It says cavalry, they're elephants. But they have slower movement. They're immune to flood damage, not that that really matters at all. That will rarely come into meaning anything. And they ignore zone of control, but they're slower, so that kind of defeats itself. A unique merchant who's immune to flood damage and ignores movement penalties from wet terrain, and they get a unique, I think this is an improvement, that just gives them food and food on floodplains. It's, if you go as Khmer and you don't find loads of navigable rivers that can flood and things, if you don't settle on a load of floodplains, they're basically useless, right? Pathetically weak civ compared to a lot of the others, and there's a lot of this going through, and that's just a bit of an example of like the civs and characters and things that they're really not all the same. They're not built equally. Understandably, it's a big game, you've got to balance a lot of different things, but it is the first thing that I would say you notice while you're playing, that yeah, you really want to be careful who you pick at the start, and what mementos and things you've got, because there are very broken and busted combos that are so much more powerful, and there are things that are just weak, so weak. They're thematic, but weak, which you may or may, your mileage will vary. You may think that's a good thing, or maybe it's not, but that's the first thing I noticed going into this. But yeah, the next thing that's probably worth mentioning is the settings here. So you do have a good amount of control over this. You can go into choosing like how many players you want. You can take some out. You can add them back in. Choose who they're going to play as, what civ they're going to play as, all that sort of stuff. You can even save configurations and load them and things. So the settings are pretty good, and you've got all this. One thing I will say though, with all of this, a few issues with, and I'll mention this a few times as we go through, like the UI is lacking in certain parts of the game, like the map type here. I think you were on 5 or maybe both 5 and 6, but you used to, when you selected this, it would have either a description or, I think it were at least in 5, it might have been in 6, but it would give you a picture of the type of terrain it would generate. So continents plus, continents, archipelago, fractal, shuffle, and terra incognita. Some of them speak for themselves, like there's continents, okay, it's going to create several continents. But what's the difference between continents and continents plus? Dunno. Does it mean the continents are bigger? Does it mean there's more of them? Does it mean that it's plus, I don't know, little islands around them? Archipelago speaks for itself. It's going to create, you know, island archipelagos. Fractal, now I think that means lots of tiny little islands. But does that mean it's just small archipelago? Dunno. Then there's just shuffle. I guess that's going to be something random. Does it mean it'll pick one of the others at random, or does it mean it's going to generate a random map that's not really anything compared to the others? And then there's terra incognita. I don't know what that even... I mean, obviously, you know, you can look up the Latin. I know what terra and incognita means. It's like, okay, Earth unknown, but it's okay. What does that translate to in terms of how a map's going to look like? You can also only go up to standard and up to, as I say, you can have up to, ooh, it looks like you can have up to 8 civs, which is pretty good. I'd say that's pretty good, pretty standard. You can't go too crazy with it, but I think that's more than enough to have a really good, meaty game. So pretty happy with that. But I'd just like to be able to see like what this is here, and going back to like the civs. So for example, production towards the Oracle. I wish I could like hover over the word Oracle here like you can on like collectible card games, and it come up with like the description of the Oracle and what it gives me. Because yeah, just straight up, I wouldn't know that starting the game. Like, I don't know, should I play as Rome? Do I want the Colosseum? I mean, I assume I want the Colosseum, but is the Colosseum better than the Oracle? Is the Oracle better than the Pyramids? You know, maybe I want to make a choice of Civ based on what wonder I want to go towards, and I don't know what they do. And you won't know till you get into the game, found a city, and then look at your different wonders on the civics tree where you unlock them from, and you will only then see the only then will you see the actual wonder in the description. And it's like, maybe it'll be like, oh, this has to be built in desert, and you've just founded your city in grasslands or something. So there's things like that. Like, this could influence my decision. And when you're picking civs going into a new era, it would be nice to know, like, should I go and play the next era as the Inca? Machu Picchu, do I have terrain in my empire that would allow me to build that on it? Because I assume it's got a placement requirement. I think Machu Picchu, if I'm remembering that right, I think that's the one that's on a mountaintop, isn't it? So it's like, do I need to own a mountain for that? Is that where it has to go? Don't know. So it'd be nice to see that here. It doesn't show it either, but each civ has their own unique civics tree in each area that you can go down to get extra bonuses, and it doesn't show you what they are here. Like, there should be like a civics thing on the side here, like, get rid of this character. It's like, okay, I've chosen my leader, move him to the side, you know, move this fella out of the way and show me here maybe the civics tree, or let me push a button that brings it up so that I can have a look and see what is going on, you know. But something like that wouldn't go amiss. Anyway, yeah. Just rather than like going through a game and like actually, describing you as I go through, I've just got some B-roll footage of the game I've had here. I'll just have it in the background. I can keep just forwarding it on to different parts of the game as we go. So this is right at the beginning. It's a game as Rome. I've just founded Rome, and you can see it there, Roma. And I really like, first of all, just credit where it's due, because at the moment I've kind of been slating the beginning part. But again, I do love the mores and the choosing the civ and leader separately. So mixed bag so far with all that, but mostly the issues I've had up to this point, mostly teething problems. I would just want to put it out there. The look of the game, it looks fantastic. I thought that Civ 6 looked a bit cartoony, given what it was, and it's meant to be like... Civ 5 were quite realistic, at least at the time. The graphics were quite going for this sort of photo-real look. Civ 6 leaned more into being a bit cartoony and a bit more colourful and vibrant. I personally prefer 5. 7, however, is kind of a little from column A, a little from column B, but I like where it's ended up. I think this is the right sort of in-between area. And because it's not going super hard on the graphics, it runs a lot better as well, which I think is the most important part. You don't want a game that feels laggy. I remember in 5, sometimes it'd go through a turn, and then it'd like reload parts of the terrain and things. It might even go to a loading screen, because it had kind of overloaded itself or something. I honestly don't know. You'd get weird glitches like that. But yeah, and we've got the tech tree here, and you can see you get a different tech tree and civic tree as well for each era. And the tech tree and civic tree, like, I do quite... Again, I quite like this sort of separating things into eras, but I'll get more into the eras later on. I'm not overwhelmed with the fact that it kind of then discards them at the end of the era, so I'm in two minds about it with these. But for now, yeah, just the beginning of the game, yeah, you pop your first city down, and again, looks absolutely gorgeous. While we're still at the beginning of the game, I will point out as well, a lot of the civs and the leaders that are in there, they are... for example, I've noticed that for instance, Britain is missing from the game, right? Bit of a bias, I know, but we're not exactly a footnote in history, given that we once owned a third of the globe, and you'd think that that'd probably get us in. I suspect we're being held back for a DLC, given that the Oxford University Wonder is in there. And not only that, but when you actually earn an economic victory, you will actually see a picture of Big Ben in the background. It shows England, it shows Britain, right? You see the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben in the background when you win an economic victory. They are definitely being held for DLC. And not only that, but India are missing. That's the other Civ that I kind of noticed that are a big deal. They're always in Civ because they always bring back the nuclear Gandhi meme. It's a fan favourite, and it looks like they're probably going to turn it into a separate DLC along with Great Britain. And it's not just Britain, it's like all of Britain. It's not just England. It is England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. None of them are in. It's a crying shame. While we're on it here, the way that you grow your cities though, so back to the positive, I love this personally. So here normally, my city will just kind of grow on its own. But here I get to choose what tile. It's a mixture between, like with Civ, it's a mixture between Civilization and Humankind. So one thing I really was hoping for with this Civ is that the competition it has would hopefully help shape it, which I think it has. From the makers of the Endless games, Endless Space, Endless Legend, Endless Dungeon, the people make that have completely... The names escaped me, I'd have to look it up now, but The makers of that made a kind of competing game for this called Humankind. You may have heard of it, you may not have. But the way that they did growth is you grew your city out by building on each tile, and so it'd kind of expand out as you went through the game, and it made for these giant, sprawling looking cities. And they look so much better on the map than the ones in Civ, because they really would become these giant sprawls, not just this one tile hex which has got skyscrapers on, surrounded by nothing but farmland improvements. It's just so much better, this system. So it kind of sprawls out like that, and you also then can build in there, you put buildings in, and they'll actually show up on the map as well. And each time you build out, it's not quite the district system from 6, where you would build an individual district and then put the associated buildings with that district in there as you go through. No, you create a district by putting buildings on a tile. That converts it to an urban tile from a rural one. And then once you've got 2 buildings there, it counts as like a completed district. So each tile, you grow into the tile when your population grows, when it's got enough food. That turns it into a rural tile, woodcutters, farmers, miners, and it expands your borders there. Which that, by the way, I absolutely love. It gives you full control of how you want to expand out your city. So you can push it towards, as I have here, we can push it out towards rare resources. We can push our city out to kind of secure borders. If we're close to another enemy city, we can push out so as borders touch, so that they don't claim the tiles in between themselves. Or, as I say, we can push out to secure certain resources early on. And it's not just random where you're crossing your fingers anymore. You've got full control over it. I love that. And then, like I say, once you've got your tile turned into a rural tile and the borders grow around it, put a building down, converts it to an urban district. You can then... I think you then do lose the yield of that tile. So if it's like, it gives you food or it gives you production or something, you lose it. But you can put the settler back on a different tile then and grow your city out again. So you don't lose the tile, you'll just pick a different one. And that tile now becomes an urban tile. You can put up to 2 buildings on it, and that will be its yield from now on. Also, instead of growing your town out, you can instead assign someone then to the tile, the urban tile, and they'll become a specialist worker. You might remember these from previous games. And they'll give you science and culture yields in exchange for costing a certain amount of happiness and food to upkeep. So you create these urban zones that are then being fed by the rural zones, and it creates a much more natural type of city. It looks a lot better. It plays. I think it feels more organic the way in which you're growing it out, and I really like this. And it's a merger between districts and the worker placement stuff and tile improvement from Civ 5 and 6 kind of combined. It does mean, the one thing it does mean is that you can't flip all your workers on the fly to be like, okay, now do production, now do food. You can't just do that. They're kind of set to where they are. But for the benefits that this gives, and also that it cuts out all that faff of doing all that, I think it's really good and streamlined. I really love the system. So I'm just putting that out there, that it's not all bad. There's actually a lot of really good things in here, and I can see why it's 50-50 on Steam, because it really is a bit of a mixed bag, as you would kind of expect when they're experimenting and innovating, right? You'll have noticed on the map here, we've had in the meantime I've been prattling on, we've got this Izertu? easier to... I honestly don't know. We'll just call them Izzy. Right, we've got the Izzy city up there. And this brings me on to my next thing. So there's 3 different types of cities. There's a city, which is what Rome is now. So we've built Rome. Your first thing that you found is a city. It's always a city, right? It's your capital. When you found another city, it will always be a town. Now, towns, you cannot build things in towns, but all their yields, and they grow and you build them up just like you would a city, but you can't place actual buildings unless you purchase them. So you can acquire buildings through purchasing with gold, but they don't have a production queue. So they won't produce units, they won't produce buildings. You know, they haven't got a production queue basically. Right? And that's essentially all that separates them from being cities. Cities can have a production queue, towns don't. Their production yield instead gets turned into gold. You can choose a specialisation with towns once you've settled them. So be like, okay, I want it to be a fortress town that gives units inside there bonus defense and health regen, or it's going to be a gold town where it's gold, its gold mining yields are improved, or things like that. It's like, okay, interesting. They're not all that beneficial. I tend to just leave them on growth, which is the default one. It just gives them a 50% bonus to their growth rate and makes their population grow much, much faster. And then usually when I get to a point where I've bought more or less all the things that I want to purchase in them, because you tend to find you actually earn a lot of gold in this game, so much more than previous games. Whereas before, you might be waiting like 6 or 7 turns to build up enough gold to purchase a building. In this game, you can probably do it every 1 or 2 turns, that you'll earn enough money to just purchase a building somewhere. So it's not that bad, just getting a town and just keeping it a town, purchasing loads of buildings there as it grows, and then when you've kind of done doing that, you can move it over to being a city. Because obviously, purchasing's instant, producing things takes time, so you can kind of hurry it along. We're seeing here as well the Roman civics, so as I mentioned at the start, it would be nice to be able to see these when I'm actually selecting a civ, because each civilization has their own unique civic tree. That's, again, it's unique to them. It would be nice to see that on the civ selection screen, because it's rather important in choosing what kind of bonuses you're going to have as you go along. Useful. Here we're picking a government. It's purely, all this does, when you get enough happiness built up in your civilization, it will give you a choice between these options. And that's it. So we're going to choose, I'm trying to remember which one I chose here. I think I went, I think we might have gone despotism. Oh no, it was oligarchy. Yeah, I remember now. So I went oligarchy, so when I get a celebration, I can choose between food or, I think it was production towards soldiers or something there. But that's kind of it. That's all your government really does now. So they've definitely reworked and kind of flattened that system out a bit, kind of dumbed it down a little bit. And there's a few systems that they've done that too for this Civ. And I think that there will be people who dislike that decision. There's definitely systems in there that have just either been dumbed down or removed from the game. I will mention that on that note, where is it? The things like the World Congress, the sea levels rising, the different game modes and modifiers that were there in Civ 6, they're all gone, right? We'll get to the exploration ages I go through here, but the religious component to it all comes up in the exploration age, and that yeah, the religion is really watered down. It doesn't play much of a it doesn't really play much into the game anymore. It's not that big of a thing, I find. The AI seem to be really into it, but it seems you could almost forget about it. It's really not that big of a thing anymore. Right. But yeah, it's so there are some things as well I mentioned in the settings that aren't there either when you're starting a game. Things like choosing maybe I want the game to not allow for a scientific victory, or I want conquest only, or something. You can't choose that either. So there's little things that, again, there are a few things that are missing, small things, but they do matter, I guess. It's yeah. Um, right. Now the first era that we're seeing here. So I want about I want about nearly forgot independence. So we were talking towns, cities, and then there's independence. These are, you can think of these as the city states. Now they expanded a lot on these in Civ 6, where eventually, rather than having barbarian camps, you'd have these independent states show up, like little one-tile towns that would act as barbarians, but you could pay them to raid people and harass them, and that would turn them into be more barbarian-like and attack other people and things, but then that could be used to attack you, and you'd basically just be bribing them to lash out at people. Or you could befriend them, ally with them, trade with them, and then they would become a city-state, and so that they expanded on this a lot in Civ 6, and they've kind of kept those changes in for the most part, in that you can incite them to raid people still, you can then befriend them and even integrate them into your civilization so they become a town that you own. You can still levy the troops, all those options are available, but defeating them is almost pointless. All that happens if you defeat them is you literally disperse them from the tile, right? Kind of like you do when you destroy a barbarian camp in the previous games. So I don't capture the town, I don't get it back, it just gets rid of them. And you can kind of see that here. In this part of the replay, I was kind of trying to figure out where the hell the button was, because I really did expect to walk onto the tile and it just turn into a city for me and ask me if I wanted to keep it or raise it here. And I was going to raise it because it's just like sticking out on the edge here and it's kind of pointless being there. But instead, no, you press disperse there and it just gives you a reward, like it would do if you cleared a barbarian camp in the previous games. But you can't capture them and turn them into your own city like you would a city-state in the previous game, which is... So it's I don't think I quite like it. I think you should be able to then decide whether you keep or raise them as if they were a normal settlement. This is something as well, you can see there the commander of mine, they had these skill trees. So the commanders are a new addition. They give buffs to nearby units, and they kind of act as your... instead of having individual units with individual promotions now, your commander gets XP based on the actions of units within a one-tile radius around them. And as they level up, the commander gains bonuses that he then gives to those units. So it's kind of a new version of doing the promotion system, really. The commanders take way too long to level up, and the rewards are not particularly great, I'll be honest. It's kind of a meh system, but it does allow you to pack your units up onto a single tile and move them faster, so there's that. it's something. I find that the admirals level up a lot faster though. For some reason, I've had like single commanders wage like 2 or 3 campaigns through the game and get them maybe to like level 7 or 8. Whereas I had a single admiral do 2 campaigns where they just besieged about 3 cities from the shores. Just basically, they went into the coast around a few cities, bombarded them, and captured them. And he got to level 9. He did it with about 3 cities. It's ridiculous, quite frankly. The admirals seem to level up way faster. The promotions they get can be meaningful, but they're usually the ones further down, and completing one of those trees that they have will give you a special bonus at the end called a commendation, and they're the really powerful upgrades. But this takes so long that you're probably not going to see it very often, and it's not going to really be all that meaningful as a result, because again, you'll rarely get to do this. So yeah, it's a mixed bag with the commanders. I feel a bit of a swing and not quite miss, but I wouldn't say it's a hit either. So as I say, the first age is classic Civilization. There's not a lot different. You'll be very much at home, and it just plays as you would expect, pretty much. Then you go into the age transition, and in this transition you swap out your civs. So your leader is permanent. You want to be very careful who you pick at the start, because you will have them the entire game, and their bonuses are forever. But your civ, you change as you go through. And so, because you change them as you go through, now there's good things and bad things, so I quite like this, that you do get to change them out, because before, if you chose, say, as I chose at the start, the Romans, they're really good early on, have early game units, early game bonuses, you're going to hit the ground running with the Romans. But as you get into the mid to late game, they'll no longer have anything that's giving you any bonuses. Whereas a Civ that has, better cavalry in the middle of the game will dominate the middle of the game. Whereas then if you get a civilization who've got, I don't know, say a unique tank unit, you get to the end of the game, and quite frankly, it's been so long, if you're behind by then, that unit isn't going to save you. It's way too late. They have long since, you'll have long since been eclipsed. You might be sat there going like, "Ooh, I'll get my unique late game unit soon," as the enemy have already invented like laser death robots or something. You know, it's you can get a bonus that's so late and takes so long to come into things that you don't feel the benefit of it, and everyone else races ahead of you because they get theirs earlier. So with every civ here, when you change midway through and then at the end, you'll get a civ that's got bonuses for now. And I quite like that. And it lets you kind of pivot and adapt as you go through. You're not just set in your ways all the way through and just going, damn, I chose the who were at the beginning, the Khmer or something, and I didn't get next to a floodable river. I'm screwed for the rest of the game. Drat. You don't get that. So I do quite like this. Again, user interface problems. Like we can click on the details here and it'll show, and we'll see it in a moment, but it does show you in more detail what they are, but it still doesn't show you that civic tree, which I really wish it would do here. And I think it's kind of necessary to make an informed decision. The game benefits in, the benefit in no way from hiding that information from you. They should just give it to you. I've no idea why. I should be able to just push a button and it bring that tree up for me to interact with. Don't know why they haven't done that. I feel like the user interface was probably just thrown together at the end here as almost like a placeholder thing. and they've just kind of never gone back to it and reworked it and made it fully user friendly and things. That's kind of the idea I get going throughout the game here. The age transition though, so you also get a new tech tree and a new civics tree, and I mean a new one. The old one is literally gone, you can't even see it anymore. I think you get all of the techs, but it's weird. I don't think you get any bonuses from them, but you will obviously, you'll have modern units. Like literally, you go into the next era, it will for free upgrade your units to the current era, right? You'll not be behind in any way in tech or anything. You all start again from zero. Well, not quite zero. You've got everything you've earned last time, you know, your cities, your towns and that are all still there and so on, but you're not a million turns behind in tech and your societal civics anymore. You're all at the starting line again in regards to that. So it acts as a catch-up mechanic, which I like, but and there's a big but here. Right, there's a big but, and I cannot lie. And that is that, okay, it does that, but you miss out on any bonuses you would have gotten from those previous techs. So, say one would give you, I don't know, +1 settlement limit, right? You'll go into the next era, you won't get that. It's gone. It's gone to the winds, right? If you missed out on getting your civic tree filled in and building the Colosseum as Rome, you can't go back and get that. It's gone. It's passed you by. You're not Rome anymore. Now, in this instance, I think I chose the Cola here, or Chola, I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it is Chola. But yeah. I'm playing as them now. Okay. Playing as them. Interesting. But I wouldn't be able to go and research for... I mean, I'd already got the Colosseum at this point, but if I hadn't, I couldn't go back, get that civic that gives me the Colosseum, build the thing, and, you know, complete my unique wonder as Rome. Right? Can't do that here. So it would be gone. It's the same for the science stuff. If you missed something, it's gone. Any units you'll have, like... You'll be up, like I say, you're up to snuff with them, but if, say, and I did find this happening a lot, I would miss out on things like +1 settlement limit here, or +1 settlement limit there, or, oh, you get, I don't know, bonuses to your specialists on this civic, or bonuses to science buildings on that civic, or things like that, gone. Other people will still have them. You won't. So you can end up, there's almost like an element of, you know, FOMO to get into the end of the era. You know, there's a bit of that going on. It's unusual. And when we do eventually get onto, as we can see, we're actually getting onto the screen here, we're getting back into the game. It doesn't just upgrade your units. Some of them it'll disband, some of them it'll keep. It depends on like how far along the military legacy you got. And then it just spreads them all around to your cities, putting them on like as guards there. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily keep them all. It gets rid of some. It feels like I've rejoined a multiplayer game after like a network issue, and the AI has been messing around with my civ for about 10 turns. You know, everything's just kind of everywhere. It's not where I left it, and it's a bit weird. You also get another thing where, unless you get the specific legacy, which we do manage to get it here, but if you don't get, I believe it's the economic golden age legacy. If you don't get that, all of your cities will revert to being towns, and you'll have to pay a sum of gold to convert them back. It's only it's a very small amount of gold, but it increases per city. Because here I'd upgraded all my cities, well, all my towns to cities, it was getting to the point where it was costing me, by the time I get to like the last one or two cities that are being upgraded back from towns, it will get into like $1,000 a piece, right? Which, if you can see at the top left there, that's quite expensive. You know, I'm only getting 139 a turn at this point, so it's getting a bit ridiculous. And so you've got a problem with that. So I don't. It's like I do and I don't like the age transition. The game that did this best, I believe it was called Millennia, and it was by Paradox, published by him. I don't know if it was developed by him as well, but it did these really cool eras where essentially, depending on what happened in the previous era, it would open up different paths to go down. So you'd start off the game, it'd be quite good, and then you'd get toward the end of the era, and the first person who completes all of their tech, or enough of it at least, on the tech tree, could then choose to move to the next era. And it would be... And they might not necessarily want to do this. They might want to get some of the extra techs before they move over. But they wouldn't want to sit on it too long because it's a case of, yeah, but they'll want to be the ones to choose what area you go into. So from like antiquity, you could go into just the normal next era. So I think like from classic to, I wouldn't say it went to Renaissance then. I don't know, but you could either go into the next era like that, or you could go into, let's say you had done, if there'd been lots of fighting, you could go into the era of blood. So, ooh, probably need a drink of water in a moment. But yeah, you'd go into the era of blood, and it'd be all terrible and horrible, and oh, you've got barbarians everywhere. Every civ would be forced to declare war on each other, just perpetual fighting in this ancient forever war. And it was really cool. Alternatively, if you had a really good era, I think it was if you discovered so many natural wonders and things, but you would be able to go into the heroic era, which was about creating like amazing heroes and bringing them forth to conquer the age. You'd get like Hercules and things and all that sort of stuff. And later on, this would result in things like getting like steampunk stuff, or going into like crazy futuristic dystopias with robots and things. And so it went quite off the rails and a bit wacky, kind of like how Civ 6's extra modes would work. And yeah, it added a bit of spice to it, and the fact that it were all dependent on how the game were going meant that every game would go quite differently. We're seeing another system as well here, so at the end of the era you get to pick some bonus perks based on how well you did on each of the previous era's legacy paths. So basically there's a bunch of objectives for science, military, culture, and economic. And going down these paths gives you basically unlocks for the next era. It gives you these points, and it also increases the amount of things you can spend those points on. And so we're picking all of these here, so we can get attribute points and different bonuses here. And the attribute points is literally like you have your leader has basically a skill tree that they can put these towards, and we'll see me going through it here as we're setting up the next era and that. And literally they'll give you bonuses. So it's like getting extra perks. And I never got that many of these. I never got enough to like fill out entire trees. The second game I did after this, I got most of the science and culture ones done in like a quick game. And, you know, they can be alright, But I wouldn't say any of these are like, oh my god, this is amazing. There's some good ones in there, but you've got to get that many attribute points to actually get to the really meaty stuff here. That, again, kind of like the commanders, I feel like it doesn't play all that big of a role in things. They're not overly important. So it's like, yeah, the system's there, but it doesn't do a lot. A lot of these bonuses will be minor until you get to like the last few of them. But yeah, now like I say, I think the ages were done better in Millennia as a game, and Civ's done a decent job at it here, but I feel like it could be better, right? Each age has its own objectives. This second era, the exploration era, so this is no longer classic Civ at this point. We're now playing, so the game is actually, the map is actually, at the beginning you'll only see half the map. You're separated by a load of impassable ocean tiles that you can't get across until the next era where you unlock shipbuilding and things, and that allows you to pass over to the side of the map where you'll discover a new continent where the rest of the players in the game are. And kind of it's trying to recreate how like America was discovered essentially. And it's a good idea and I like it. But the actual objectives for the era, if I remember correctly, they're all to do with going into this foreign land and bringing resources back, conquering everything there, and the other stuff is like to do with just spreading your religion and things like that. And it's kind of like, yeah, I couldn't really do much in this era because you might be able to see at the top we've got like 9 out of 10 settlements settled. So I didn't have enough settlement limit to go to the other island and pop down a settlement there. So yeah. So because after this I end up settling some settlements in the ocean in the islands on the ocean in between because there were some pretty good spots there. Snatched them up before anyone else, and didn't have the settlement limit for it. So you can literally go into this area if you don't have the settlement limit. You can't take part. Good luck. The penalty for going over the settlement limit, by the way, is you have to build. Well, you need to get more happiness in your settlements. You get a -5 happiness penalty nationwide. Every city, every town, right, gets -5 happiness, which is basically you would have to go and build a specific building that will give them happiness, like a park or something like that. A radio station in the modern era, and you would build these, and that would give them a little bit of happiness just to help kind of get rid of any negatives from having too many settlements. But the problem is you'd have to build one of those everywhere. So if I wanted to go, say I hit my settlement limit here of 10, and I wanted to go to 11 settlements, now you've usually got a good amount of excess happiness, so I could probably go to 11. But if I wanted to go to 12 settlements out of 10, that'd be another -5 penalty nationwide, so it'd be -10 in total, and I'd have to probably build a building in all 12 of those settlements to offset the amount of unhappiness, right? And so you start getting into this problem then where it's like, oh, I want to take another settlement. Maybe you get a settlement in a war and it just tanks you in happiness and screws over your cities. Has happened multiple times, that. And it's why I didn't end up building fleets and going and exploring the new land, because I knew I didn't have the capacity. So because of that, it's really put me off against this way of doing settlement limits. They have always in Civ been against the idea of going super wide. There are certain like mementos and leaders you can bring. I think in the next few games that I'll be having, I'm going to try Xerxes because he gets +1 settlement limit every era. And I might play then with a memento that I've unlocked playing as Augustus and put it on Xerxes, and that gives you the same bonus, +1 settlement limit per era. So each age I'll get an extra settlement limit from each of those bonuses. So by the end of the game I'll be able to settle another 6 settlements in total. So I'm thinking of doing that the next time because it has been such a pain in my backside. And I understand why they do it, because yes, going super wide means that you would have loads of cities all simultaneously growing, and it would mean that you would become absolutely unstoppable. They have to have something to discourage you from literally just building all of the cities or conquering all of the cities and then just steamrolling everyone. There needs some kind of stopgap there, and that's kind of what this settlement limit is. But in previous games, it was nowhere near as harsh as that. I actually forget what it was in Civ 6. In fact, I think it was the same as 5. I think previously, the way that this has been done is it would cost more culture and science to unlock techs and civics based on the number of cities you had. So if you had loads of cities, it would cost loads of science and culture to unlock new civics and techs. Okay. So what it meant is you couldn't have lots of little cities. But if you had lots of cities that you'd actually built up and put the resources into and made them quite productive, then it wouldn't matter because a big city would offset the cost of having that city, adding, increasing the amount required to grow things and stuff like that. So as long as you had big cities, it was generally fine. And that's what I would tend to do. And you can kind of see me beginning to do this here. We've got this giant sprawling empire, but most of the cities, even at this early stage, encroaching on about 10 population minimum almost. Our newest one down there, Narbo Martius, is already on to 6, right? So that's how it did it before. Now there's just this kind of fairly hard cap. Like you can push over it a little, but yeah. And the thing is now the other AI themselves have become super aggressive in this one. I'll put it out there. They're way more aggressive than before. Civ 5 was really bad for this, where the AI were more just schizophrenic than anything else. They would be happy with you one moment, and then, I don't know, you'd trip some kind of quirk that character has, because they still do this. I don't really like it as a mechanic. Each leader has like a certain thing where it's like, oh, this person likes the civilization who has the most wonders. This person likes the civilization who doesn't have wonders. This person likes the civilization with the most boats. And then they would hate you if you don't have boats and literally declare war on you. That is, if I remember, that's Harold Hadrada from Civ 6. If you don't have boats, he will come and raid you, right? If you do have boats, he will just go into an alliance with you. It makes no bloody sense from a tactical perspective, and whether or not they should go into an alliance with you based on like geographic location, whether you're allied on the game, whether he thinks you're a threat to him or not. No, it doesn't. No, it's all about how many boats you have. It's so weird, and loads of them were like this. They still have these, but they seem to be less swayed by them. So they more just dislike you if you're close by and seem to be a threat. And they are way more likely to go to war with you. If they do go to war, it's not just like sometimes on Civ 5, I remember, I would get war declared on me, and it's like, okay, you have pikemen, I have tanks. Why have you done this? And then I'd just flatten them. And you think, why did they declare war on me? Like, you would avoid doing that. That the AI just wasn't thinking. It's just going like, number gone, number is red now, me attack. No, no kind of critical thinking process in there whatsoever. That was Civ 5, and a fair amount of it in Civ 6 as well. This time they seem to be way more cautious about declaring war on you. The only reason they'd do that if they're really behind on you is because they're in an alliance with someone usually. And in addition, you also, as I say, you've got that sort of thing happening. But when they do declare war on you, it's not just they'll send 1 or 2 units your way and maybe try and take a city and then back off when they don't manage it. And then when you try to go to peace, get all butthurt about it, refuse to wait, let it fester another 20 turns before they then eventually accept a peace offer. After having done nothing all that time. It's no longer like that. It's like, nope, they've declared war. 3 armies arrive at your border. A navy on your coast. Have fun. So you have to be way more militaristic with this one. That's what I've found. In fact, I might just skip ahead here to some footage of the Giant Forever War I started. Let's have a look. And so, yeah, here we've got bit of modern era combat for you, just to kind of round it all out on. I will say this as well in the modern era. Infantry are pathetic and useless against basically anything and everything. As are the AT guns. Like, tanks are... They used to be just cavalry. Like, they were just modern era cavalry units. They seem to be way more powerful now. They move really far, they hit really hard, they're good against districts, not as good as siege units obviously, but they don't just slam against the walls and explode. Like, they can actually besiege cities fairly well now, much better than sending troops in. So tanks are kind of, if you're going to just produce a unit that's just going to generally speaking be good all round in the modern era, tanks, just build tanks, lots of tanks. And then just artillery behind them to just shell city defences. Which is another thing as well, by the way. You take cities now, not just by capturing the centre, you have to take every district that has been fortified. So you can build, you don't just build walls and it takes a few turns and there you go, you've got walls. You can build walls for each tile in your city. And by all means, you could literally cover your city in walls. In the modern era, they're called defensive formations, and it's like just big walls with sandbags on top. But you can build these all across your nation, and anyone who's trying to get through, it'll be like trying to push through treacle, They'll have to be taking wall after wall. You put a unit in there, it takes them ages to dislodge them. They'll need to bring like bombers and artillery in to actually manage it, and it can really slow them down. And yeah, so it's the combat is definitely, it's kind of as it was. I wouldn't say it's significantly better or worse. It does very quickly, because it's so much more militaristic now. It very quickly devolves into just so many units on the screen, and all of them are wanting like individual orders and things. You can kind of give group orders with your commander, but he only affects the units in the tiles around him. And you're probably not going to keep him too close to the front lines, because then he'll be at risk of dying. Honestly, I wish the commander had like an extra 1 tile radius built in, rather than it being an upgrade that you get way down the line, and it's way down the line, by the way, right? Like, if you push your commander toward that upgrade, he might get it before the end of the game. But yeah, and you quickly end up with like giant tank traffic jams trying to push through like jungle tiles and things, and you still have all those issues. Yeah, it's not bad. The on the era transitions as well. So the different crises you can have, because now when you end one of these eras, there's like an end of era crisis. So as I was saying, I think that the eras are done better elsewhere, but the crisis that occurs quite interesting, quite nice. Adds a bit of flavour to things, makes you have to manage things a bit better and all that. And again, I do kind of I like the ages and the eras and things that they've done, but I think they could be done better. Religion, by the way, it's practically pointless. You get to the exploration era, you pick a religion, and then you add beliefs to it as you would before, and the beliefs are mostly like bonus science for every foreign farm that is following this religion. Bonus food for every foreign coastal tile that follows your religion. So it's all about spreading it to other cities so that you get bonuses. It's kind of parasite-like. So there's a bit of that to it. You have to go down like it gets its own civic tree. So you'll have your civilizational civic tree, the regular civic tree, and then there'll be the religious one that you've got to level up in order to get your religion going and get more beliefs and things and make it more powerful. And then you'd have to train missionaries and send them out and spread it all, and you've got to micro all that. And for the bonuses it gives, I honestly don't give a crap. It feels like it's like a side objective that you don't really need to be engaging with, if I'm fair. It's not as big as it was in Civ 6 or 5, and it feels like it's just a big downgrade for the religion system. But they do the same thing with ideology in the modern era here. So it gets its own civic tree. You choose one, you're going to be team red, blue or black. Commies, fascists or Democrats. Up to you. You pick your team. They give you a bunch of bonuses, which aren't particularly great actually. The bonuses that the ideologies give you are kind of minor and who cares. It just makes everyone of every other ideology really annoyed at you. So you can remain neutral by just not choosing one. And it doesn't ruin your relationships with everyone then. Because all the AI just choose one at random, and then depending on which one you pick, will just... Basically, I would just pick depending on which AI you want to be your allies, or don't pick any if you just don't want to engage in the military legacy, and you don't want to go starting wars. That's kind of how it works. Again, the bonuses are really minor. I think they could be much more fleshed out, like maybe the fascism one should be really production focused and, kind of reflect the nations that chose those in the Second World War. So, yeah, fascism could be super production focused, make loads of stuff, really good at that. It could give you bonus movement on units for like blitzkrieg and things, and be more reminiscent of like how Germany fought the war. Whereas the communist one could be more like you get loads of production but only towards infantry. And your infantry are really good at being defensive or something like that. It could give you that sort of thing. And the democratic one could be more about, okay, units are really cheap to buy, because capitalism. So democracy would be everything's super cheap to buy, and you get bonuses for naval units and maybe aircraft. Because we were all, since we were doing the big naval and air invasions with paratroopers and the D-Day landings and that could be more reflective of that. I feel like they could definitely go in more depth with this. The way that you win the game, is you will accomplish one of the legacy paths at the end, which is to either... And I've done 3 of these victories. I don't know what the final task is on the culture one, but I can tell you the ones for the others. So with the culture one, you have to basically train a load of Indiana Jones type fellas, loads of explorers. They go and study at universities, go out into the world and find artifacts, bring them back, put them in a museum. I'm not kidding. That's literally what you do. You go full Indiana Jones, get all those back, and then you have to do something else. I don't know what it is, but you do something else, and that's how you get your culture victory. It's all about collecting artifacts and relics. The scientific one is the most straightforward and probably the easiest, but you have to be really on your science game. And it is literally, you just go and research as much tech as you can, and you get to the point where you unlock rocketry, right? You can start with aerodynamics, but you will need at least rocketry to end it all. When you get aerodynamics, you can go for you start doing tests at your capital. You've got these projects. I don't think they have to be at your capital. It's anywhere where you've built an aerodrome. You have to like break the sound barrier, and I forget what the second one is, but basically you do 2 projects that take usually around 5 or 10 turns or so, depending how crazy your production and science and stuff has been. And once you've done that, you then launch a satellite into space. And then, when you've completed all of those, and you've got all your tech research, you've got rocketry, you are now ready to go for the scientific victory, right? Which involves doing the first chartered flight into space and so on. So basically, you're doing moon landing, and when you do that, you win. I think that the science one is worse than it was before, where you would create the Apollo program, but then you'd build the different components of the rocket, send them to your launch pad, assemble the giant spaceship, and send it off to Alpha Centauri. I thought that was way cooler and had more steps involved, and it were more complex. So this feels like a dumbed down version of the scientific victory, if I'm honest. And I feel like it should have probably just stayed as it was. Not just that, but also because just doing those projects, it's not really... It's a bit easy to do, and it can end the game quick. The next one, so as I said, I know the culture one in previous games was literally, if your culture was high enough, you would just create a load of tourism based on like great works you had and how many rock bands you sent everywhere, and it'd just convert other nations to your culture, and then you would win. And you wouldn't even get a warning that people were about to win until it was way too late, and they were going to win any moment. So there were a problem with the culture one. I think they've probably improved on that. So I think the culture one's an improvement. The science one is, it's been made worse. The conquest one is quite interesting. You just have to capture enough cities that you get enough points. You get, I think it's a point for capturing a city. A point if it's, I think, yes, you get a bonus point if it's, in fact, yeah, it's a point for each city you get, a bonus point if it were conquered, and another bonus point is if that opposing player is of a different ideology than yours. So you can get up to 3 points per settlement you capture. And when you've got 20, you unlock the Manhattan Project, build it, drop the bomb, then you have to do Project Ivy afterwards. And once you've done the Manhattan Project, by the way, you can build and deploy nukes to places. It's really cool. And once you've done Project Ivy, the hydrogen bomb, you've won. That's it. Everyone surrenders, you win. The Forever War is done, and victory is yours. So that's a big change from conquer everyone's capitals, and I think way back it will just conquer the world. Nigh on impossible if you're doing like quick games online and things, so it makes the military conquest victory way more viable now, especially in quick games. Because when you do quick games, it usually makes the game quote unquote quicker by reducing the time to produce things, the time to research things, that sort of thing. But it doesn't make units move faster. So your military victories on quicker game times were way harder to get because you couldn't conquer things faster because it's not like you got more movement time. Yeah, you didn't get more movement points. Yet you had way less time in order to do it. So now it's somewhat viable. Right. So that's your conquest victory. And then finally there's economic, which is just to plug a load of resources that you've got. They call them factory resources. So a load of resources you've been getting through the game will become factory ones. They can only be slotted into cities with a factory and rail line. And when they are, they get you 1 point per turn that they're slotted in there. When you get to enough points, it then gives you I think they're called literally the Great Banker. You basically get Jeff Bezos to just send around and just buy everyone's civilizations from under them. And then he creates the World Bank when he's done. You have to get them to everyone's capital. So what this means is if you're playing wide, which is what I typically do, you'll usually be able to do this very quickly and easily, way before everyone else, because you've got way more cities to slot things into. You've got way more resources because you are expanded out, right? And you've got loads of landmass. And the thing that kind of got me on this, which is why I didn't quite immediately do it when the era started, because holy crap, I would have been able to do this so quick otherwise. I didn't know where everyone's capitals were. Useful tip for this, if you do get to the point where you're launching the satellite for the science victory, but you have the World Banker available, if you've been doing both, the satellite does reveal the entire map. Because, yeah, you can't just ask people where the capital is anymore. They've removed that. It's a fair point as well, the diplomacy screen. It's better and diplomacy works better than before, and when enemies peace out with you, they will actually usually even offer you small settlements as kind of an olive branch. And I quite like it that the AI will actually give me something worth giving them peace over. It's like, here, have a free settlement, rather than you expending all this energy and units and all that, taking more territory from them, and you've got this hard settlement cap anyway, so why bother? Just take the easy out. They'll offer you something quite tempting to get peace quite often. It's a nice change than them being just complete hard asses all the time and just saying no forever and never giving you anything good. So, yeah, it is a bit better in that regard. Yeah, so you would, if you wanted to do the economic victory, though, yeah, it's easiest thing is to, if you happen to know where everyone's capitals are, so maybe in like the exploration area, you just get some scouts onto the other continent, get open borders with everyone, and just find their capitals. The World Banker can actually teleport into other people's capitals. They literally have a transfer to city button, and it can be used on enemy cities. I don't think it's a glitch. I think that's intended. I think it might be to do with if they've got rail connections or something. But yeah, you literally teleport them there and then press a button which spends a bunch of your money. You need a lot of money to do this. And basically buys their... It doesn't have an effect. It just says that, okay, you've got a branch of the World Bank in their capital, and that's one of however many people are still playing for what you need to get total victory. And that's kind of it. So the end game stuff I quite like, in that it's not just a I finished the tech tree, science win. It's not just a oh god, I have to go and conquer the world and it's going to take forever and is completely unviable. You know, it feels more like all methods of play are now more viable, and every single one of them has a little task you have to do at the end that's a bit of a faff, just to give everyone else that extra little bit of time to go, okay, this person's about to win, do something about it, and it gives them a bit of a chance rather than it just being, oh, this person's going to win in 10 turns with culture victory, and by the way, they're about to make that even faster because they've got like 20 rock bands running around to all the wonders of the world doing concerts, you know, and you have no chance of even stopping this even if you were to declare war now and nuke them. Like you can't even prevent it from happening by the time it tells of it. It feels a lot more, a lot fairer and a lot better at the end game. So overall, I would say that the Odd Duck is the middle era, the exploration era. I was not a fan, but the other two eras, so 2 out of 3, pretty decent, right? I think that pretty much nails it all, though. I'm looking through my notes here. I think I've gone over everything. There is then at the end, you can't carry on with like extra turns at the end, and you can't. There's no like replay function or like a series of graphs or something to look over. It just kind of shows you your end of game. Like, here's how much XP you earned, like you'd get at the end of a Call of Duty game. And you see the little bar go around and your new unlocks pop up, and that's kind of it. In fact, I'll probably be able to show you a clip of it here. So yeah, I'm just going to see here. So this is the Project Ivy completion, and we just get a little thing at the end, play, and then it just kind of goes to, yeah, here's your XP screen, and that's kind of it. There's no graphs or like, I'd really love, even if it were just your capital or something, like a replay of the game where you could just like watch your city grow from that one tile outward. I know it'd be a lot to ask that, because it'd be having to remember probably a lot of game states, or it'd have to take a bajillion screenshots depending how it wants to do it, and it'd be a big faff keeping all that, especially when you'd have to keep it for every save game and so on and so forth. But it would be cool if there was something like that, or even if I just showed you the graphs at the end for like when you are doing well, like you typically get at the end of most strategy games. But yeah, it's all in all though, it's again, I can see why it has a mixed rating on Steam, and there's a lot of things that you kind of go, yeah. There's not, there's things missing, things that were there previously, things that have changed that haven't quite worked. But all that said, as I say, they've really nailed some things, like growing out the cities. They've really improved that. I like that you get a bit of a catch-up mechanic now. I think it will very much needed with how some games end up turning. But not everything's quite perfect. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm also not happy with the fact that, I mean, I'll be honest, they really obviously are going to put like India and the UK and things in, probably as like DLCs. It's pretty much like, yeah, they're doing that at this point. You can kind of figure it out. And I actually did do this in game. I loaded the game back up. In case you're wondering, loading it back up and playing out the ending slightly differently, you don't get more XP or anything. You can't just keep loading your save and playing the last turn and getting a bajillion XP infinitely. They have at least made sure that that's not a bug. But I went back in, cancelled Project Ivy, and because it turns out I was going to get the World Bank that turn, but obviously Project Ivy just completes. So, but I would have got them simultaneously otherwise. But you can see there. What is that? That looks like a familiar building. I wonder if they could be getting added as a DLC and have been taken away from the game in order to do that. I wonder. I wonder who could be. Oh, look, there's a flag over there on the left. Who could possibly be coming in the first or second DLC, maybe? I wonder. I do wonder. This is the economic victory screen. It's like, yeah, it's kind of giving it away, ain't it? So I can see why it's got kind of mixed reviews on Steam, but very much a case of like, okay, but while it is still it's one of those games where it's mixed, not because it's good and bad in spots or anything. It's not like, ooh, some people really hate it, some people really love it, and it's a bit of a Marmite thing. It seems to be very much a case of the game is like that. It's reviewed like that because it really is literally like I could reel off, and I have basically for the past hour and a half, reeled off a bunch of features that I really like and a bunch of things that I kind of hate. And loads of new features that exist in the game, and it is absolutely full of all these new features and different things. I will be honest, I'm glad they've tried something new. I think you see all the competition starting to show up around like 4X games, and there's a lot of competition, and it's nice to see that they're not just sat on their asses doing nothing about it. They've looked at the competition and they've gone, okay, we're going to have to do something similar. We're going to have to try and compete. We can't just sit about and let our crown be taken off us. No, they've reacted to it, which is good. It's good to see. But obviously, with innovation, you're always taking risks, and you'll not always pull them all off. It takes a few goes to get things right. We've seen with like a brilliant example is the city growth, right? The city growth stuff. They have been trying to get that right since Civ 5, and they've finally figured it out how to do it. And honestly, I think that this system of like you're growing your city out, you're placing the civs on the individual tiles, I prefer it to Humankind, and I prefer it to any other 4X game. I think this is the best iteration of that. It's taken them several games to figure it out, but they've managed it, right? And yeah, it's things like that. They'll not get all of this right first time. They've got some DLCs on the way, because obviously if you bought like the big edition, it contains several DLCs of things to come out. We'll see what they bring out. Hopefully it'll fix some of the things in the game, improve on things that weren't quite right that weren't quite right to begin with, things that need improvements. Hopefully it'll sort that and add more content. A few things I'd like to see is I would like to see maybe options to do different things with the independent cities, like rather than just disperse them, I should be able to like capture the town or something maybe. I'd like to. Another thing, like I feel like the eras are missing something. Like I feel like there should be a medieval era. If they're gonna do another age, medieval would make sense. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a modern, if there was a after the modern era, if they added like I don't know the information era or something. But basically, the current era in. You could probably add that after like World War Two, and we could go as far as there. So you could add another age afterwards and really expand the game out a bit then. So I feel like just in terms of like raw content like that, there's room for more saves and other things. And as I said, there are things that I do like. I like that you can now pick your civ, your mementos, and your actual leader separately and mix and match. It adds again to that crazy, wacky, alternate history thing. And also being able to swap your civs out at various points in the game. as I say, there's a lot that I like, and as I've gone over, a lot that I'm either on the fence of or that I don't particularly like. But I hope this has been helpful for you, and it's informed you if you're looking to purchase, make a purchase on the game. If you're wondering, should I buy it now? Should I buy it later? This is kind of what's in the game. That's what's changed, and that should just about cover everything that's either improved or worsened as time has gone and in this new iteration of Civ. But again, personally, I mean, I've played 28 hours on it already. I like it, right? I wasn't all on board with Civ 6 when it launched, and I think that got a few mixed reviews. But then they added all like the crazy extra game modes, the additional civilizations. It got much better over time. We've not seen mod support yet, but I would be surprised if they're going to do a Civilization without mod support, and so I would assume that they're going to add that as time goes on. And yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of these issues get corrected with mods, right? So you'll probably soon have mods, and they'll fix like UI elements and add new mechanics in. I wouldn't be surprised if Religion got a complete overhaul by modders, if not the developers themselves. The same with ideologies. And we can probably expect to see some very interesting leaders being added through mods as well and through DLCs. I'm curious to see who they're going to add as the lead for Britain. Because I'm always curious to see, like, I mean, we're basically confirmed that they're going to be added. Like, let's be honest, Big Ben's on a victory screen. They're probably thinking about adding them, They probably are. I'm willing to bet it's going to be Queen Victoria. I reckon it'll be Queen Victoria because they've got the exploration era, and that's kind of when Britain was at its height in the Victorian era and Age of Sail and all that. It would make sense if, mind you, I think they're going to be added as a modern era Civ, because in the exploration era, and this is the problem that you get. It's like, yeah, the exploration era, it's not really the Age of Sail and the Renaissance and things and the Victorian era. It's like all of those and the medieval period all bundled together. I feel like it really should be split into two different ages. Because you can start as the Normans, which should then theoretically lead to Britain. I'm assuming that they'll probably put England in at that point as well. And then you'd get Britain as a modern Civ. But, yeah, so, I don't know. Since there might be as a modern era Civ, which makes you think more World War One, World War Two, and torn between whether it'd probably be Queen Vic or if it'd be Churchill. Probably one or the other. But they're like, and especially on this civilization, since this is the 7th one now, they don't like reusing people over and over again. But some obviously do keep getting used, like Gandhi and Caesar and stuff. But they seem to like going sort of left of field quite often. And Victoria was in the previous one, so might be more likely to see someone else this time. We'll have to see. We have got a number of, we've obviously had a long line of kings and various elected rulers and things, so we have a decent roster to choose from, but I'll be curious to see who it is. Anyway, as I say, hope this has been useful, hope you've enjoyed. I'll leave it there. I think we've covered just about everything in a fine detail. There is a full playthrough available on the channel, and might be more to come out as we move forward. I might do a few more playthroughs, we'll see. Depends how things are as we approach the release of Monster Hunt, because I'm going to be very busy then. Channel will be nothing but that probably for a while. But if that sounds like something that interests you, again, more videos available on the channel. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped, and I'll see you in future videos. I'll see you then.